Hey, I just woke up after a pretty rough night. The same thing happened last night as the night before, which was whenever I was trying to go to sleep, the private parts of my body began being burned again, and it felt like someone pushing out something inside of my body. So, yeah, that's what I am up against. Today is, let's see, February 16th. Look, 17th. Friday, February 17th. And the past 2 or 3 days, my neck and my back have been hurting so bad. It feels like someone's radiating on my body, on the back of my neck, trying to put my neck out for some reason. And just extremely intense headaches. I went and drank some beer yesterday because the pain was so intense, and because I couldn't find a doctor the day before that would accept my insurance. By the grace of God, I'm staying in a hotel, and so that's good. But yeah. And weird mouth feels just like my teeth are like pressed forward, and I don't know. It's a lot of strange things. I've been doing some research, I guess what it's called, organized stalking. I'm called a targeted individual. But the abuse last night was pretty extreme. I can feel it's going to be the same again today. Already on the harming of the private parts of my body. I don't really know what to do. I tried to go to a doctor to get some kind of pain medicine, because what is happening to me is my actual physical body is being burned. And so it causes me to go into shock, and it's excruciatingly painful. And I have my limitations on the duration and length of pain that I can handle. So it was a couple of weeks ago, I tried to go to the hospital, and I talked about military proprietary systems that are used, like, I guess essentially drone technology, which is just manipulating and changing something without touching it or being present. And suddenly there was a man standing outside of my hospital room. I asked him what he was doing there, and he said that I needed to stay in my room. And I asked why, and he said that essentially they wanted to keep an eye on me for a while. And I was like, okay, for how long? And he was like, well, we haven't decided that yet. And I was like, all right, well, I'm leaving. But it definitely felt like if I talk about what's happening to me, that I'm being retaliated against. And I know the logical mind is like, well, everyone can't be involved. But it seems that, I don't know, if the government has the right to watch and the proper paperwork, just walk right in and take over a hospital. And it seems that is a very real reality in a lot of capacities of the things that I've faced. So today, just kind of just feeling some pretty general fear about my own safety, because the government's burning the private parts of my body. Sometimes it feels like a laser, or like pins and needles, like a tattoo. Sometimes it feels like a sunburn. yesterday my breasts radically changed in size. And it feels like, I don't know, like moisture on my shirt or something. I don't know. But this is the world that I live in. Don't really know what to do about it. I don't really know how to fight back against someone harming me who is not in my presence. I hope that what's happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. I don't know exactly what to do or how to make sure. It's just a very just helpless feeling. Just feel like there's nothing I can do, essentially. And I don't know, it's been going on for almost 2 years now. And then organized stalking, much longer than that. The harm and the abuse. In 2007 and 2008, some people started trying to drive my car off the road, harassing me, threatening me. My 2 older children were much younger then, and people would threaten to take my children, just try to get me to do drugs, and when I wouldn't, they would threaten to say I did anyway, or will walk past me and say things like, well, we're just going to say you're an undercover cop to put your life at risk. Living in a tough neighborhood at the time. And I began dating a lawyer. I was living in Austin, Texas at the time. I began dating a lawyer that I'd met in 2005 in Arlington, Texas. He'd approached me at my work and given me his business card, and he worked on some interesting cases. And I felt like, that maybe he was a good person. I was in fear for my own safety and my own well-being. I reached out to him, and he feigned helping me. That summer, I had gone to my OB and just had like a full medical workup, which was pretty much my what I normally did, and everything was fine with my health. And after I dated him, I ended up being hospitalized because I almost died. My potassium levels were so low that I nearly died, and they told me that I tested positive for HIV. I continued to believe that I had AIDS for 2 years, and after a period of time I went back to the doctor and they said that I tested negative, which was strange to me, but I was really relieved and very, very glad. And now that has come under question entirely for me. The people who do the organized stalking have at times made it very much known that they were involved at hospital and medical places where I am. That lawyer's name is Christopher Barnes. There was one point whenever I was dating him where he did this kind of small movement that reminded me, just kind of like if you're like people do things a certain way, like pick up something or look at something or walk a certain way or have just certain algorithms, I guess. And he did something, and it reminded me of a man that I knew when I was 16 who propositioned me and tried to get me to do drugs and told me no matter what you do, these people are going to ruin your life. And I just blew him off and thought he was crazy, essentially. But at any rate, there I was sitting in Chris Barnes's house, and he reminded me of that specific lawyer. Though nothing about the way that he looked had really reminded me of that person before. I didn't really know that person very well, though. And I was just kind of like, that's not possible. And then he sat down and told me everything that happened in that room with the man that propositioned me. Which was impossible for him to know that information without being that person. Needless to say, I stopped seeing him after that. And I was sexually assaulted at my work. When I called the police and they asked me if I was having a transference issue. And I was like, what are you even talking about? The man who sexually assaulted me had 2 female friends with him. And they both told the police that they didn't see anything. And we were not in an empty room. There were plenty of people who saw. But that also happened right before I was hospitalized. And I forgive that person. But, that was 2008, the end of October in 2008. This is February 2023. And I've had to try to piece together how all this happened to me. And I can't really talk about it anymore right now. I tried for years to seek justice against the lawyer, and I was repetitiously prevented from it. I reached out to every government office to try to seek aid and relief from the organized stalking and the harm. There were aspects of it that started pretty early, not the burning of my body, but like pushing down on the inside of my body. And during 2008, I began having extreme migraines and headaches and heart palpitations, and ended up having to be on a bunch of medicine from it. I now think it was the same kind of technology that was harming me yesterday, putting my neck out and causing me just bodily harm. It's just, I've often felt like other people live in America, but that I have no rights, no civil rights whatsoever. Because I have no ability to enforce my rights or to stop the people who harm me from continuing to do so. and it's changed my perception about this country. Where it just, feels like people can do whatever they want to me and get away with it. And the things that people do to me, they used to turn around and make some story against me. And that's happened repetitiously throughout my life. I believe now. I understand a little bit more about how this has worked to harm me. The word says that God works all things to our good, and it feels like the enemy wants to work all things to our end. That people hurting me and harming me somehow gives them a right to. I'm trying to think and explain what I've learned. I think essentially what happens is if someone harms me, then the people responsible for the organized stalking go to them and say, Megan, that's my real name, says that you did this and you might be prosecuted for doing this. What are you going to say? And the person's like, well, I'm going to make something up about her then. And so that's essentially because I'm harmed, I continue to be harmed. And I'm speaking about it in non-specifics because I don't have the emotional capacity to get specific right now. But it's, lawyers sleep with 16-year-old teenage girls. Supreme Court lawyers and get away with it and infiltrate their lives. There's actually a lot more to that story. Just expand on it a different day. Just emotionally exhausted. Today's just began. It's like 8 o'clock. I was up well into the night with the abuse and the harm. Something that feels like pushing down on the inside of my butt, essentially, and burning the outside of my body. It feels like tattooing the outside of my body. I keep kind of looking away. It's weird to look at my own face talking on the phone. It's just weird to me, but maybe I need to get a different camera or something like that. Anyways, if you're watching this, please pray for me.